Calling to order the Municipality of Monroeville's regular council meeting for January 11th, 2022. It is approximately 7:10 p.m. If we'd all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Roll call, please.
Mayor Grieslock,
Here.
Mr. Hizzy,
Here.
Mr. Poach,
Here.
Mr. Stevenson,
Here.
Mr. Wolfram, Mr. Adams,
Here.
Mr. Williams,
Here.
Mr. Biondo,
Here.
Mr. Little,
Here.
Mr. Ratcher,
Here.
Ms. Rock, Mr. Hugus, Mr. Sedlak, Mr. Weldon.
Welcome. We're going to start the meeting off. We have a, Mr. Little, please, if we have a new employee introduction.
Yes, I mentioned to council at the work session that I want to start a new procedure here in Monroeville because the last 4 or 5 years, we have had a lot of turnover here, and especially because we have 4 new council members. Council members come into the office, and some of the employees, a new face, they don't know, and it takes a while for them to get to know. So tonight, I wanted to introduce our newly hired person. I'm Matthew Accorsi. Matthew, you want to just stand up? You don't. And Matthew is our new IT support specialist, and he comes from CompuCom, and he also has an associate's degree from Westmoreland County Community College, associate's degree in telecommunications, and also computer information security. He also worked. Was in the Army, U.S. Army Signal Corps radio operator and maintainer, and he's also was in the Pennsylvania National Guard from May 2005 to May 2012.
Yeah,
Welcome you here.
I'm still a member. Yep.
You're still a member,
I
okay.
got that.
All right. Well, welcome you, Matthew.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for
Welcome,
sharing.
Matthew. All right. We're going to move over to our public comment period on proposed agenda items only. At the end of the meeting, residents will also have an opportunity to address council on any municipal matter. So this section is only for items that are on the agenda. We ask that you keep your comments to 5 minutes. That is to ensure that the meeting moves smoothly and we get home in a timely manner. And we, council and myself, we feel that 5 minutes is plenty of time to get your point across on your public comments. So I'll leave the floor open for anyone that would like to address council on agenda items only.
Does that mean volunteering on boards and commissions? Or that goes at the end?
I'll allow that as well. And Kim, you stood up?
Yeah. I did sign in already, but I'm Kim Krivda, Jamison Lane. I had handed out a little packet again, and for the new council members, I added some support documents that maybe you guys didn't see. I respectfully request the application for this subdivision be tabled for the following reasons. The acreage is still incorrect. We don't know how much he's buying or what he's established on his plan, and I'm going to show you why. This is the first number. This is the first. All of the minutes in the past couple of meetings have been either 3.1 acres, 3.38 acres, 2.77 acres. Mr. Terrett has acknowledged at the last council meeting, if you look at the notes, said that it was 2.77. Well, now it's 3.1. Now, if you look at this document that I provided you guys with, in the very bottom corner, right here, it lists this property at 2.78 acres. And this is the DCI property. It also lists the person who did the survey, and that is Mr. Terrett. In the little circle right here, it has his stamp and his name. This was done in 2000. All of the deeds previously to this property, like I have said before, all listed at 2.77 acres at the county. The county remapped it. It's 120,800 and some odd square feet, which equates to 2.77 acres. The stormwater, to move on with the paperwork, I did provide a document from the DEP, and they did the report when they came out, but they weren't allowed to examine the pond. But he did make a formal report, and his information is on the second page, and I highlighted that for everybody. If we can't get the acreage right on this, how do we know what the subdivision is? I'm not understanding this. He says, and it's in this agenda, that it's 3.18 acres. It's not, that's not what it is. This is his document. This is a certified document that was his back in 2000, and it states it right in the corner. And he's the surveyor, and it says 2.78 acres. So if we can't define the area first, I have no objection to the subdivision, but you can't define the area. How do we know what we're buying? Let's see, a copy of the DEP report is attached. The Municipality of Monroeville they never posted it because it was a subdivision, and I don't know why that didn't happen. It states in the ordinance manual that they are to post it for 1 week prior to the planning meeting, that never happened. Only because I guess there are adjacent properties that are affected, and a subdivision is it's a fairly serious movement for the municipality. Also, let's see, attached, you will find the council meetings back when this comprehensive plan was done for the council that have not been on board, it just came on board. The neighborhood was adamant that they wanted a covenant, and quite frankly, a covenant is just a promise, but it was spoken, and I have attached the minutes and highlighted for everybody to see that there was a covenant discussed and a new revision to the plan, the comprehensive plan was done. The attached rezoning map also is with those minutes from that comprehensive plan in 1987, and it identifies a buffer zone and the residential property and the commercial property. That buffer zone is a point of contention with me because it buffers us from the commercial property. And all of the deeds attached reflect 2.77 acres, and it also says on the deeds, there's a little preface right before it gives the acreage. It states that they are taken from the middle of the road, which is Mr. Terrett had made that statement before. It's taken from the middle of Monroeville Boulevard. I would imagine back in the day, that was probably only a 2-lane highway. Maybe it was wherever it came from, but that's what it says. So I'm not understanding how he's getting 3.18 acres there. And that's the biggest problem I have with this.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else who would like to address council on agenda items?
Yes.
And if you could just sign in, please, if you haven't already.
Sure. My name's Janet DeSecco, and I live on Jameson Lane. And my concern with the sale of the DCI property is that they would not be responsible any longer for the water issue that we have, and also maintaining, or they're selling away their responsibility to somebody and liability for that property. So does that mean we're still going to have the water issue, but DCI's?
I believe there is an easement in the agreement that the retention system and pipe would be part of DCI still.
Okay, and they'll still be responsible, and will somebody make them responsible for maintaining it? Because it hasn't been done.
I think they just were there.
they did hire a plumbing company, and they did try to clear the pipes, but they weren't successful. So the problem remains.
We'll follow up with staff on that one.
Okay, thank you.
I'll leave the floor open. Okay, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I've already signed in. I'm Barbara Span, property owner in Monroeville, talking on 2 agenda items tonight, open boards and commissions, as well as the purchase of the fire truck. Mary Lou Span wanted to be here with me tonight in person to encourage volunteerism in Monroeville, but unfortunately, she passed away just before Christmas on the eve of her 89th birthday. So instead, I will pay tribute to the heart of one of Monroeville's great volunteers over the past 60 years in the hopes of inspiring others. I've spoken here in the past about the contributions of Miles Span to many things, and he loved our fire departments, helping to get the first jaws of life for Monroeville. So on that agenda item, I would say, purchase that truck, save some lives. You guys want it. I know you'll use it well. He was known for being outspoken as he served 20 years on Monroeville Council, but Mary Lou Span was her own person, steadfastly supporting Monroeville more quietly and without politics. Politics were not her interest. There are a number of vacancies on boards and commissions here right now. They're on the website. And she would say, anyone can volunteer. Please volunteer. You would surprise yourself how much you get from it, as well as giving to Monroeville. She served on the Government Study Commission, developing the Home Rule Charter that has served as a foundation for our municipal government for just under half a century. As a director on Gateway School Board, I remember her walking up to teachers who were out on strike, and they were a lot in those days, to get to know them better and understand what it is they were really looking for, what they really needed, just as we asked citizens to come here on Citizens Night and comment here tonight. It's very important to understand what people need. On the Planning Commission, she carefully weighed the precedents being set for Monroeville's future. I noticed 4 items from that commission are on the agenda tonight, and careful weighing of those are the things that bring them here to life. Balance, intellect, and compassion were the example that she set in her service to Monroeville and encourages others to do. But her real love was bringing great programs to literally thousands of children, families, and senior citizens of Monroeville over the years. If she could leave one inspiration, it would be that life is so much better, and so much better here when people engage, when they connect, and they find something interesting at any age. Don't discount them at any age, young or old. The Arts Festival at Boyce Campus, previously Monroeville Arts Council, and Monroeville Historical Society, and those properties are owned by Monroeville, have brought concerts, Native American, woodlore, interactive crafts, and unique food, all powered by Monroeville volunteers and donations from our local businesses. In her final years, Mary Lou Span was often seen with her walker trudging up, whether it was up a hill somewhere or over a curb, or calling school board members or workers for the municipality, the school board members, to convince them that kids in our system should take advantage of the many resources we have here, many paid for with our tax dollars, and also with the municipality ensuring that those resources were here into the future. I'd like to thank the citizens from Alpine Village. We have 3 generations of families there still volunteering today who had joined her in doing so, and frankly volunteers all over Monroeville that still bring these many things to Monroeville. Mary Lou Span would say that good things come to life here when you volunteer. And whether it's on our open boards and commissions, for Historical Society, arts programs, whatever you're doing, please volunteer. Thank you.
When Mary Lou passed?
December 18th.
December 18th.
Yeah, she should still be alive. Unfortunately, we had trouble getting her out of a facility where she was temporarily taken care of. But in many ways, she's here with us today, so thank you.
Mr.
Well, we have our deepest sympathy.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, would it be appropriate to have a moment of silence?
I think it would be
Mary Lou Stamp
appropriate.
this
So if
time?
we please all could have a moment of silence for Mary Lou. You may be seated. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Welcome. If you haven't signed in, if you could.
On the sides.
There we go.
Hi, I'm Nina Vecchio, Jameson Lane also.
Welcome.
Thank you. Just a few things to add to what we've been dealing with for the last 4 months at the meetings is now the water, as you all have figured it out, is crossing the road, Jameson, and coming to the other side. So we have 2 leach beds next to me, which is our neighbor Karen Lodon. We have also had water problems. Janet, who lives next to me here, we have a small lake that's in between. So whether you guys realize, as I think that we're in better shape now with people like Mike Adams and Joe Hizzy on here that understands the infrastructure that we're having a problem with in Monroeville, with water and sewage, and how far that we've come in the last 10 years has been wonderful. But the brand-new road that they just repaved is also cracking. So we need to look in depth, not that I care if he gets that property. I'm just worried about us keeping flooding through the years. Anyone that has a garden, it really gets moldy and mushy. It's pretty hard on that side, but I've been here 2 years ago talking about the issues with water, and it really never stopped. But now that we have an idea what it could be, it might be that pond. I think that you guys should have the upper hand to make them responsible to make sure that that pond is working. Because I'm really feeling that it's not. If you would come and walk again through the area when it's raining, like 3 or 4 days ago before the snow, it was still trickling out. It should have been pouring out. So thank you for your hard work. I really hope that you table this and get this settled. And not just for our piece, but kind of, yeah, it's our piece because we're flooding. So appreciate the time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll leave the floor open.
Hi, Georgiana Woodhull. I have a item that's not on the agenda, but from previous that I'll speak of later. But I do want to ask if you could maybe explain the conservatorship that's on the agenda tonight. And I also wanted to know if, because I did receive a couple of calls, not understanding, and I didn't know well enough, if the property is taken because there are tax liens and it's blighted, or are there no tax liens against, these are just abandoned properties?
Not on this property, you mean the other item? Is that what you're
On the
asking?
conservatorship, on the blighted properties that
Oh,
you're going to
I'm
be
sorry.
passing.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we will discuss that when we get to that item.
Okay, so I need to come back up for that? And I
Well, this is a
just want-
comment period, so
I
if you have
just-
comments
okay,
about
I
it.
just wanted to know if there are any properties in our neighborhood on that list of blighted properties that you have.
Okay, if council takes action on that, we would make sure that the properties get read into the record. We'll let
Okay.
you know. Yeah.
Because we have several homes in the neighborhood that are blighted.
No, that'll be public knowledge,
All
yeah,
right, thank
absolutely.
you.
I'll leave the floor open for comment on any agenda item. Seeing none, we're going to close that part of the meeting. And once again, we will have another comment period at the end of the meeting for any municipal item. Next on the agenda is the Mayor's State of the Municipality Address. This is in our Home Rule Charter. Municipal Council, Manager Little, staff and fellow residents, Section 606G of the Monroeville Home Rule Charter requires for the mayor to prepare and deliver a State of the Municipality report to the citizens of Monroeville. Monroeville continues to live under the presence and effects of COVID-19. These effects have impacted our community in many ways and will linger for some time. A shift is going to have to be made to live with this virus. For individuals to take personal responsibility for their health, reasonable safeguards to be followed, some services to be modified, and for resources to be available for those in need. I'm extremely grateful for our healthcare community as a whole and our leaders in healthcare at UPMC East and AHN Forbes Hospital. We all know what these organizations have gone through over the past 2 years, and Monroeville is fortunate to have both hospital systems in our community. We thank all the doctors, nurses, and every staff member for their contributions and service to Monroeville and the region. This year sees a change in the makeup of our elected municipal council. 3 incumbent members and I welcome 4 new members to the 7-person elected body. I look forward to working with this group, the manager, and the staff for the greater good of the community. This year's budget funds all of our current departments, services, and amenities which our residents and community members enjoy and depend on without raising taxes. The municipal manager, department heads, and staff have done an amazing job providing these services throughout the pandemic, and in some ways had to do things much differently than in previous years. The municipality would not be what it is without the employees' hard work and dedication. Due to proper management over the past several years, Monroeville's fund balance is fiscally sound by keeping expenditures within budget by the municipal manager and department heads. It is also attributed to proper collections by our tax department. This reserve has lessened the financial burden on the community due to the pandemic and will continue to be closely managed for unforeseen expenses. Our capital improvement program must move forward this upcoming year. Although this program has been delayed, Monroeville's infrastructure continues to age throughout the community and within municipal facilities. Management and council must recognize, prioritize, and fund these much-needed projects. Unfortunately, this past year, we had numerous vehicle accidents involving pedestrians, including 3 that were fatal. This is devastating, and we need to find ways to prevent this in the future. One way is to move forward on our active transportation plan and improve pedestrian and bicycle safety in our community. At the end of this past year, a previously enacted ordinance was brought to our attention which addresses sidewalks in the community. All new development must install sidewalks, but at times there is a hardship to do so, mostly with location or topography of the development. I ask council and staff to enforce the sidewalk hardship ordinance in the coming year for all projects coming through the planning process. This ordinance recognizes that there are at times difficulty with sidewalk construction, but requires developers to place funds into a separate sidewalk account so the municipality can construct sidewalks in more appropriate areas. Many Monroeville businesses continue to be impacted by the pandemic. Although many are seeing more customers, they are also experiencing difficulty with staffing. Additionally, retail continues to feel the effects of online shopping. I continue to encourage everyone to shop locally for the same reason, to support our local businesses and their employees here in our community. The municipality will continue to work closely with the Monroeville Area Chamber of Commerce and its members. This past year, home sales were brisk and sale prices climbed at a rate that we have not seen in recent years. There was and still is a high demand for homes in our community. There were also numerous land development projects completed or placed under construction this past year. The Building and Engineering Department issued 383 building permits with an approximate construction value of $96 million. This is a significant increase from the previous year. Some of the projects were the VA Outpatient Clinic, JP Morgan Chase Bank, Gateway School District's Middle School, the 100-unit Fox Plan Road Apartments, the 135-home Sandy Hill Development, the Lodovico Office Building, Dollar General, and the Sheets reconstruction. We also welcome back Pro Bike and Run to Monroeville as they reopened at their new location after suffering a devastating fire to their former business in the Miracle Mile shopping plaza. This fire, along with many, were responded to by our volunteer fire departments. We support them and greatly appreciate their service to our community. Monroeville will continue to provide supplemental funding for these departments, starting the year with a new ladder truck. Fire, EMS, and police continue to be dispatched by our in-house 911 call center. This is an important community service that I will continue to support and will encourage council the same. I also fully support our police department and advocate for the hiring of more officers this upcoming year. This is a multi-step process that has already begun. Depending on retirements, I will be recommending to hire 8 to 10 new officers over the next 16 months. Additionally, this past year saw our police department being fully outfitted with body cameras and associated equipment. I feel this is essential for the safety of our officers, and I will continue to support this program. Now, looking through a larger lens, this country is divided. It's divided in many ways on a national level, but it is a great country with unbelievable opportunities and freedoms. Let's not lose sight of that. As we move towards a new normal in Monroeville, we all need to do our part. Regardless of who you are or what you believe, let's be good neighbors. Let's be kind, respectful, help where we can, work hard, be courteous, and try to relate to one another. I am a firm believer that it all begins at the local level. I want to sincerely thank the residents for electing me to another term as your mayor, and I look forward to the upcoming year. Now let's all work together to keep Monroeville a great community to live, raise a family, and do business. Moving on, we have an executive session announcement that council conducted an executive session before Citizens Night on Thursday, January 6th, 2022, from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., and on Tuesday, January 11th, 2022, from 6:30 to 7 p.m. before the council meeting for personnel and litigation reasons. Council legislative action, if any, shall be taken at the Tuesday, January 11th, 2022 council meeting this evening. Council, we reviewed the minutes on Thursday of the Citizens Night meeting of December 9th, 2021, the council agenda setting meeting of December 9th, 2021, and the regular council meeting of December 14th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second? I had two motions.
Mr. Williams.
Mr. Williams be a second. Great.
Second.
Now, there is some procedural issues with this. Mr. Ratch, if you could help me out. So this being from last year, we have new council members that can't vote on these minutes.
Correct.
So only the 3 incumbent members can vote.
That is correct.
2 incumbent members are here.
Yes. So it'd be my recommendation that you have 2 choices. You can either have the 2 that are here vote on them, or you can withhold approval of them until next month.
It being the minute.
You're only gonna have 1 more next month.
Correct.
Yeah,
I mean, considering it's the minutes,
yes.
nothing controversial.
Yeah, it's about corrections and deletions and, whether anything was spelled wrong and so forth, and I don't believe there are any that have been called to your attention, so I would recommend that the vote be taken with the members who were here and seated during last month.
Understood.
Yep.
Council, understand? Mm-hmm. So there's a motion, a second, to approve the minutes that I outlined. Roll call, please.
So it would just be Mr. Poach?
Aye.
And Mr. Williams?
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Okay.
Okay, council, now we can move, and then moving forward, that was the only thing that pertained to that issue was just for the minutes, correct?
Well, we have
List of
the
bills.
budget
List of bills.
meetings the budget meetings of October 28 and November 4, but those minutes are not ready yet. So
Correct.
obviously, we'll be in the same situation, albeit perhaps with, hopefully with Mr. Wolfram back next month when those are considered.
Very good. So moving over to our approval of our tax collections, is there a motion to approve?
Motion. Second.
Motion is second to approve. Any questions or comments, council? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy,
Aye.
Mr. Poach.
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson,
Aye.
Mr. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Biondo.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Council, list of bills and budget transfers. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion and a second.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Adams.
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson,
Aye.
Mr. Poach.
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy.
Aye.
The ayes have it. And payroll report.
Motion to approve? Second.
Motion is second to approve. Questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy.
Aye.
Mr. Poach.
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson,
Aye.
Mr. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Biondo.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Council, moving over to vacancies on boards, commissions, and authorities. I briefly touched on this on Thursday. Procedurally, some things that we hadn't done in previous years, but this is a new year, new council, and following suit with our home rule charter and the PA Borough Code. Two actions that can be taken on these items. So we have nominations and we have appointments. A nomination is what initially how they're placed. When they have interest, they have their name in front of council, they place a resume, a letter of interest, send it to the manager. Those names come to council, and then at that point is when a council person or the mayor could nominate that person. Once an individual nominates, they're nominated. We don't have to do a vote, we don't have to second it, you can just nominate and that's it. Once their name is on the agenda for a month, then you could appoint. And once that happens, appointments have to have a motion, a second, and then it is a vote for appointments. Understood? Very good. So I'll start with nominating Brandon Markozic for the Convention Visitors Bureau.
Second.
Don't need to do that, so.
Put it on there?
Just,
No, it's a nomination.
That's
It's a
just-
nomination for next year.
yeah,
Okay.
totally new way of doing it.
Haircut.
Robert's Rules of Order. So, and that's all I have for this evening. Mr. Hizzy, do you have anything this evening?
Yeah, I'd like to appoint Debbie Izok from 172 Kelvington to the library board.
You're making a motion to appoint?
Appoint, yes.
Second the
And
motion?
we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Second of all, I'd like to
And
appoint,
wait, I'm sorry, opposed? Is anyone opposed?
Okay.
The ayes have it, thank
Thank you,
you.
Mayor.
I'm sorry. Second of all, for the municipal authority, Mr. David McGill.
Second.
That's an appointment.
Appointment, yes.
Yeah.
There was a second.
Motion, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Anything else, Mr. Hizzy?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Mr. Poach?
Recommend for I believe we're at appointment two for Mr. Gordon Kahn, the Parks and Recreation Board. Motion to.
He's not been nominated.
I thought he had been nominated.
No.
2 terms had expired.
No, he hasn't been nominated yet.
Vacancies, so then it's a motion to then
To nominate.
nominate. Sorry.
Very good. Anything else?
Nope.
That's it this evening, Mr. Poach?
Yep.
Okay, very good, thank you. Mr. Stevenson?
Nothing.
Mr. Adams?
I'd like to appoint Larry DiAugustino to the zoning hearing.
That's an
It's an appointment.
an appointment.
Yeah.
Do we have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Mr. Adams, is that for the one term, January 2022 to December 2024?
Yes.
Yeah, not the alternate position,
No, for
The actual-
four-year term.
okay. So the ayes have it. Anything else, Mr. Adams?
No.
Mr. Williams?
I'll nominate Rhoda Lorger, Ward 6, to the Recreation Parks Advisory Board.
I'll second.
That's a nomination.
Nomination.
She's already been nominated last month,
Okay,
so
then that's an appointment.
would you like to make that an appointment?
Thank you.
Make an appointment, yeah.
Mr. Biondo, will you still second
I
that?
will second that, yes.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Anything else, Mr. Williams?
Nothing else.
Mr. Biondo?
I'm going to nominate Dan Gerhardt to the Parks and Recreation Board.
Very good. Anything else, Mr. Biondo?
That's it.
All right. Council, moving over to our consent agenda in old business. Mr. Little, please.
Yeah, the first one is 21-5-ST Shri Shridy Saw Baba Temple Incorporated. Applicant is requesting site plan approval to construct a new religious temple and then raise the existing temple and install associated site amenities. The project area is approximately 1 acres located at 1451 Abers Creek Road, tax and parcel 1108B173 and R2 one-family residential and S Conservancy zoning district. Planning Commission recommended approval, and council tabled this application at the council meeting on December the 14th.
Okay. Council, this was tabled, as Mr. Little said, so is there a motion to take it off the table, to remove it from the table?
Motion.
Second.
Motion is second to remove from the table. Roll call, please. This is only to remove it so we can discuss and we can act on it then, okay?
Okay. Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
The ayes have it. So is there a motion to act on this item?
So moved.
Second.
Motion
To
is second.
approve?
Motion is second to
Approve?
to approve.
Okay.
Questions or comments? Council?
Yes. I believe we need to remove number 8 of 21-5 ST due to the fact that further in the packet, there's a request for a waiver for that same item. The item reads in part, applicant agrees to comply with the requirements of Ordinance 1016 concerning sidewalk construction. So I think we need to remove that so we can deal with it when the waiver is there.
Mr. Ratcher, if you could,
Yeah, so the applicant has also requested a waiver, so obviously if the waiver's granted, there's no need to have this item included. So the only question is whether you want to the council wants to act on the waiver first, just out of order here, so that they can then act on this with the knowledge that the waiver has been acted upon.
okay.
Okay.
So
So maybe you want to move over to the motions,
it's the resolution.
resolutions, I'm sorry,
All right, council, if you could turn
D1.
page 3, D1 of resolutions, a resolution approving a waiver releasing the applicant, Sri Shirdi Sai Baba Temple Incorporated, from installing sidewalks as required by ordinance number 1016 along Abers Creek Road in Northern Pike. This is currently tabled, so is there a motion to
Motion.
remove it
Second.
from the table? Motion second to
Remove.
remove from the table. Voting in the affirmative only removes it from the table, and then we can act on it at that point. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Now, is there a motion to act on this resolution, D1?
Motion.
Second.
Motion to approve?
Yes.
There
motion to
was a
approve.
motion.
Motion to approve to approve the resolution.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Questions or comments about the resolution at this time? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
The ayes have it on the resolution. Now, let's move back over to our first item of the old business. There was a motion and a second to approve. I believe that satisfied your comment, Mr.
Yes. Yes, it did.
Mr. Stevenson. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. Motion and a second to approve. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Next item, Mr. Little.
Okay, the second one is with the same development. Applicant requesting a conditional use approval pursuant to section 401.8 of the Monroeville zoning ordinance 1443 as amended to permit cut and fill operations totaling 12,000 cubic yards of earth. The project area is approximately 1 acre and located at 1451 Abers Creek Road, tax parcel 1108B173 in the R2 one-family residential and S Conservancy zoning district. We did have a public hearing on this as required with a conditional use. Planning Commission recommends approval, and council also tabled this item at the December 14th meeting.
Council, is there a motion to remove it from the table?
Motion to approve, to remove.
Second.
And a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Council, is there a motion to act on this item?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second to approve. Questions or comments? Seeing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Mr. Little, next item, please.
Okay, next one is 21-5 SUB Kenneth Nason. Applicant is requesting preliminary and final subdivision approval to subdivide tax parcel 639L66 and consolidate a portion of the subdivided property to parcel 639M108. Parcel 639L66 is currently 3.18 acres and will be reduced to 2.26 acres. The smaller subdivided piece will be added to parcel 639M108, creating lot 14R. The properties involved are located at 2534 Monroeville Boulevard Dialysis Clinic in the C2 Business Commercial Zoning District and 162 Jameson Lane in the R2 One-Family Residential Zoning District. Planning Commission recommends approval, and council tabled this application at the December 14th council meeting.
Make a motion to untable.
Second.
Motion is second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy?
No.
The ayes have it to remove from the table. Is there now we are going, this to be discussed, there has to be action taken on this item. So is there a motion to take action on this item? And then we can discuss it.
So motion.
Motion. Is this to approve?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Questions or comments, council?
I do have one question, Mayor. I'm confused in this part of it here. We talk about the size of this. We've had testimony in terms of different pieces of that, and it was here and from public comment earlier. Is there a way that we can confirm with staff?
Yeah, let's have
On what that is and
let's have
and
staff,
what
and
action
Mr.
it
Wheeldon,
is?
if you would,
And do we
please.
have to make a correction? That's my other question to you, parliamentary. Do we have to make a correction on what's listed here?
Should we give them time to look it over?
Well, no, they have I think, looked at it. That's my question, is to hear from Mr. Weldon, I guess. That's a better way to phrase it.
Mr. Wheeldon, welcome.
As always.
So the item that Mr. Poach outlined as far as the acreage discrepancy and also the comments earlier about the discrepancy in the acreage.
The 3.18 acres originally was a typographical error that was put into the agenda description. It remained in the agenda description because the item was tabled and I didn't want to revise the description. Mr. Terrett, in a previous meeting, stated that MS Consultancy, municipal engineer, caught that typographical error, and it has been adjusted on the plan. On the survey, the subdivision plan that is before you, it has been reviewed by MS Consultants and Allegheny County Economic Development, and they have both approved it, and on the subdivision, it states 2.77 acres. So the 3.18 is essentially irrelevant at this point.
Okay.
So that was just a typo?
Yeah.
And there was questions regarding the subdivision not being posted. Do subdivisions have to be posted?
No, there's no public notice requirement for subdivision and land development, just conditional uses, variances, not for subdivisions.
And then there was discussion, I know, at this meeting, previous meetings, about the covenants?
I could find no covenants. There was one brief mention of covenants in the meeting minutes from 1987. The applicant has since paid for a title search, and the title search shows no covenants on the property.
Okay, Mr. Ratcher, that there's nothing.
No, I reviewed it as well, and I reviewed the language in the 1987 rezoning, and there's no, there are no covenants. And as I said at that time, covenants are agreements between private property owners to restrict the use of private property. The government has the power to zone, so the government doesn't need to involve itself in covenants. The government's exercised their power by simply zoning the property a particular classification. So there would be no need to have any covenants, and the ones that were mentioned in the 87 rezoning minutes are not relevant to these parcels.
Okay. Council, any other questions at this time?
That has no impact on, I'm sorry, Steve, was what we have written here, how do we correct that officially for the minute?
This is just the agenda. What matters is what's on the approved plan.
Right.
You're approving a plan. So whatever's written on that plan is what's ultimately going to be recorded and come of record. This is just to provide public notice that there is a subdivision.
Right.
So if there is a discrepancy, and Paul has explained that, it's not an issue in terms of what you're approving. You're actually approving the plan
Subdivision.
that's stamped by the
The
surveyor.
21-5-SUB is what you'd be considering.
Right.
It's been, well, it seemed very complicated to you, so it's actually much more straightforward than anticipated.
Mr. Williams, you had a question?
I got a question. MS4 with a dialysis clinic, they have a pond?
It's an underground gravel sump. It's not really a pond.
Okay, does MS4 have anything to do with that?
It predates our requirements, so not really.
We've never taken that over through MS4 then?
No, it's no.
It's private it's considered
Correct,
private property.
yeah.
Private
That was one of
property.
my questions. That's private
Yeah.
as far as maintenance on that system.
Correct.
Right. Because that was some concerns of the residents over there. Who's to police that when they maintain it, or?
If it does become a problem, the municipality could get involved, but typically on private property, it's a private property dispute between the private property owners. Myself and the municipal engineer inspector have been out to the site, and we didn't see anything faulty with the system as it is. So we'll keep an eye on it, and Ms. Krivda has our contact information. If something does happen, she can give us a call, and we'll go out there and look at it.
Okay, thank you.
I know the question a resident would ask is, what would it take for the municipality to take action against the private landowner?
There would have to be some kind of destruction to private property or something. It would have to be pretty severe in order for us to get involved.
I honestly believe that we do need to keep an eye on that. I don't know whose responsibility that's going to be, but the residents do need to know that it does work, and if we have to say that or prove it, then that's something we need to do for the residents.
We could certainly monitor.
Thank you.
Council, any other questions or comments on this matter?
So I'm just clarifying from my own mind, so we're really only voting to move this from the commercial zoning to be R2?
What you're actually voting to do, subdivision involves drawing lines on a map.
Right.
That's all it involves. And so the line is gonna be drawn in a different place because it's gonna be attached to the parcel that's farther away from Monroeville Boulevard. It's just a piece of that property, piece of one property, it's gonna go over and be a piece of another property. That's the extent.
That's the extent.
Everything else that's a condition there is as it is, no matter where that line is drawn.
And that's all we're talking about, is that property.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, the vote's gonna be on the sale of the property.
The subdivision of the property, just
Yeah.
moving out the property line, that's all this is.
Yeah, one
Yeah.
seller to a buyer.
Yeah, and there were some questions about the existing stormwater system, that underground gravel sump. That will remain DCI's property and responsibility. And on the subdivision plan, there is an easement for the discharge pipe that goes across the applicant's property, so that if there is a problem with that system, DCI has the rights and ability to access their pipes.
Thank you.
Council, any further questions? There is a motion and a second to approve. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy,
No.
Mr. Poach,
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson,
Aye.
Mr. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Biondo.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Moving over to our new business, Mr. Little.
Okay, new business, 21-7-C, a little learning lab. Applicant is requesting conditional use approval to operate a child care facility pursuant to the Monroeville zoning ordinance number 1443 as amended, section 401.9. Property is located at 2553 Moss-Side Boulevard, tax parcel 857M300 in the C2 Business Commercial Zoning District. We did have a public hearing on this last Thursday as needed, required by the conditional use. Planning Commission recommends approval.
Council, is there a motion to act on this?
I make a motion.
Second.
To
And your
approve?
motion is to?
To approve.
To approve. Motion is second to approve. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo,
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Adams.
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson,
Aye.
Mr. Poach.
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Good luck with your project.
Good luck, guys.
Council, moving over to our motions. We have 3 this evening.
Okay, the first one is a motion to authorize to advertise an ordinance amending ordinance number 848, authorizing the placement of a stop sign on Sandy Drive at Jerry Lane.
Is there a motion to approve this?
Motion?
Second.
Motion is second to approve. This is in Mr.
Turnpike Gardens.
Turnpike Guard, Mr. Wolfram's ward. He was interested in this item moving forward. Unfortunately, he could not be here this evening. So there's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy,
Aye.
Mr. Poach.
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson,
Aye.
Mr. Adams.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Biondo.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Next motion.
Okay, second one is a motion to permit Community Reinvestment Partners LLC to operate within the limits of the municipality and petition the court on behalf of the municipality for Community Reinvestment Partners LLC to obtain conservatorship of listed properties to mitigate blight and nuisance properties within the Municipality of Monroeville.
Council, is there a motion to act?
Motion to act.
Second.
Motion second to approve. Questions or comments?
Question, what exactly this group, do they get sheriff's sales, buying it off private owners, or how are they acquiring these properties?
Bobby, Mayor, you want to?
Yeah, I can jump in. So what they do is there's a law called the PA Conservatorship Act. It deals with blighted properties. So when they identify a property, what they do is they come to the local municipality, get approval from the local municipality, and then they petition the court to act as the conservator to essentially take over physical custody of the property. And from there, they make improvements to the property to take it out of a blight condition. And then the way the law is written, the party who does that, they're the first people to get paid if the property's sold, so that they can get their money back.
So they don't pay nothing up front.
Well, they have to put money into them to take them off the blight list. They have to correct the blighted conditions. So they're putting out money with the idea that they're gonna be able to turn around and sell it, and they're the first ones to recover their money. So they look at the properties very carefully to make sure that they're not getting into a situation where they, it would take more to bring it out of blight than they could sell it for at the end. So there are 9, in the statute, there are 9 conditions of blight, and they have to prove that 3 of those 9 exist in order to get the court to approve having them appointed as the conservator. And then they have duty, once they're the conservator, they also have the duty to go in and correct the blighted condition. So it is a monitored situation. It will happen in conjunction with the municipality, which, we can oversee what they do and how they do it. The good part of it is, and we talked about this a little bit last month, the municipality doesn't have to put out any money up front to have this done. So typically, the municipality could do this on their own. you could actually become the conservator. But then the municipality would have to put out public tax dollars to do that and essentially be a property manager, which, you know, is a difficult
Does
situation.
this eliminate anybody else that wants to buy these properties?
No, somebody else can come in and bid. When they're in conservatorship, they are off the market, until such time as,
And who deems that, the state?
no,
As they're off the market?
the common police court, the judge who is supervising the conservatorship. And they have responsibilities, they're answerable to the court for what happens. Obviously, the municipality will be watching what they do. So, there's a profit motive involved in it, but the good side of it for the municipality is, these are blighted properties that nobody else wants to buy to try to fix up. But as far as just the properties they identify, they may or may not be able to obtain them. They may not be able to prove that there's enough blight. Somebody may come in the meantime and outbid them to get the properties.
Yeah, because they're just looking at some of the pictures. Some of the homes didn't look that bad. I mean, where they couldn't be fixed.
Yeah, that was when I met with the gentleman back in September from Community Reinvestment Partners. That is, they're looking at properties that are on, they could see in a 2, 3, 4 years, they're on that verge, but they don't want properties that are totally dilapidated. And if I could add, and Bob, correct me if I'm, I mean, through the conservatorship, the person that owned, they keep, the owner, the original owner keeps the deed, the ownership to the property, all through that conservatorship. So they're not losing, because they may not be able to flip the property, they could even lose money. So it's a risk to them. And they would maintain or get their equity out of it, whatever it may be. I mean, a house may only be worth $20,000, and they may sell it for $150,000 minus what they put into it, and that's the profit motive that Mr. Ratcher's speaking of. So it's not that you have a private company coming in and taking over properties, because I've had that question of it. It's not that. I mean, it's a benefit to the municipality, and hopefully it's a benefit for everybody all the way around. It's a benefit to the conservator, to the current owner, and to the municipality, hopefully.
And to the extent that any entity would come in and do this, and they would essentially be abusing their privileges or not doing the proper job, the municipality has the right, because we're actually going to be a co-applicant. We have the right to petition the court to have that conservatorship removed. So there are some checks and balances. Now, they do operate in the space where the properties are in better repair. But the idea is to try to catch them in that period where they have not fallen into such disrepair that they're beyond repair. So that's really the ones they want to find. The ones that are in worse shape, quite frankly, they end up with the land bank, which has more of an ability to invest more money and really doesn't have a profit motive.
Now, if I could just read, I mean, council has the memo I gave to them last month, or that was the previous council, last Thursday. And there's 4 criteria under the conservatorship law. The building has not been legally occupied for the previous 12 months. And the second is the building has not been actively marketed during the 60 days prior to the date of the petition of the conservatorship. Number 3 is the building is not subject to an existing foreclosure. So these properties are not in foreclosure. They haven't gotten to that point. And number 4, the current owner fails to present sufficient evidence of acquisition of the property within the preceding 6 months. And then there's also 9 requirements, 3 of which the conservator has to meet, and they're really pretty basic, common sense items that they have to meet. For instance, the building and physical structure is a public nuisance. Number 2, the building needs substantial rehabilitation, and no rehabilitation has taken place during the previous 12 months. Number 3, the building is unfit for human habitation, occupancy, or use. And I'm not going to read all 9, but I think the public gets the general idea, because you could probably pick out different properties that you know within your neighborhood or close by. But just for the sake of Ms. Woodhull, she asked which properties. The properties listed here, the first one is 3986 Hazelwood Drive. The next one is 348 Knoll Drive. The next one is 556 Shoemaker Drive. The next one is 417 Colonial Drive. And the next one is 4399 Center Road. So those are the initial properties that they're seeking for conservatorship.
And now, Mr. Ratcher, in that regard, does the municipality have any control over the properties in the sense that they recommend, or they want a property that, for whatever reason, there's a problem with on our end, that we don't want them to?
In other words, you're talking about a property where they've been appointed the conservator, and now we see that they're not doing their job?
Prior to that even happening, as they establish this list, before they actually go for conservatorship of these properties?
Yes, they come to us first. They
Okay.
come to us first and ask us to act as a co-applicant. That's where the control
That's where we'd have
is.
control.
Right.
If by chance there was maybe a relative that was involved that, you know, sometimes these things happen where someone ends up with a house, they don't live around here, things of that nature.
Yeah, and one of the things that, the property owner also has a say in this too.
Okay.
The actual property owner. And where I think there's been some abuse, of this act, I think, is about 10 or 12 years old.
Yeah.
Where I think there probably has been abuse in the past on this is that the municipality did not join with the conservator, and so nobody was watching what these people were doing. We are gonna be watching. And they're gonna be the conservator, they're gonna be putting out the money. And so there's 5 properties here, and if it goes well, I think that the staff will probably recommend that we do this again. If it doesn't go well, then obviously we won't.
And if they want to include more properties later on, would that come through us again?
Have to come back, yeah.
Okay, and that would
Yep.
come through council again?
Yes.
Okay.
Every property?
Yes.
Every property would have to be, okay.
I have a question, and I'm not sure if it's for the solicitor or the manager, but we don't have a staff person in a cupboard waiting to review this. How's this going to impact the staff?
I would say that you have a relatively small number of properties here. Some of these properties may be properties the staff's periodically looking at anyway, because the grass is getting too high. There are other conditions that have been called to the attention of the staff. So, you know, if you had 50 of them, I think it's a real problem. With 5 of them or 6 of them, I think it's probably something. I shouldn't speak for Paul's people. I know that they've got plenty to do, but that would be my thought.
Bob, did you mean according with building inspection or?
Well, whoever is going to be the person or persons that is going to deal with the conservatorship people, and how much time are they going to be involved with that?
Well, I think it would be like any other property, a person would come in, a conservatorship or not, and a relative gets a hold of a property through somebody passing away in an estate, and they say, oh, I want to fix it up, and it's been sitting there for 5-10 years vacant, and it needs some repair, and somebody comes in and just starts, I think it's the same thing.
Well, a lot of times, I think code enforcement usually gets involved with something like that. So
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
right.
they probably already, and I think that's what Mr. Ratcher was kind of saying, some of these houses are probably already known to staff being problem properties, unfortunately. And, but I think it sounds like a really great partnership for the municipality. I mean, blight it's a terrible thing for the community, it's terrible for property values and neighborhoods, and everything we can do to try to prevent that, I think that's really important. And certainly along the way, though, to your point, Mr. Stevenson, maybe monitor it, and maybe if staff says, hey, this is a little too much, then we need to make adjustments at that point. Maybe this is a good trial to have these first 5 properties.
Well, maybe that's why they only went with 5 instead of 50.
Possible.
It seems to be a choosier process because, once again, they can't be in foreclosure, and they're not taking properties that are really dilapidated. And I guess that would depend on location. I would think, I don't know, that commercial property may be a little different than residential property, how much it's dilapidated, because you're probably gonna get more out of a commercial property. But then again, you gotta put more into it probably.
Yeah. Well, they have to do their homework or they'll lose money.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's the impression I get. They gotta do their homework.
Yeah.
Good private-public partnership. So, counsel, Mr.
I
Williams.
have a question for Mr. Ratcher, and this says that the municipality petition the court on behalf of the municipality. Will the municipality have any liability because of this statement?
No, the conservator is the liable party per the statute.
Thank you.
We're just kind of going to be big brother.
Council, any further questions or comments?
No.
Seeing none, we do have a motion and a second to approve. Roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Okay, third motion is a motion pursuant to the fire service agreement between the Monroeville Volunteer Fire Companies and the Municipality of Monroeville, Ordinance 2724, to purchase a Pierce Custom Ladder Tower Truck for the discounted price of $1,427,867. And the attachments council has and is well aware of this purchase.
Is there a motion on the floor?
I make a motion.
Second.
That motion is to approve.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Motion second to approve. Questions or comments? There was a presentation last Thursday about this by Chief Sattler, and it's also in the fire agreement. Motion second to approve. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for coming out here tonight.
Thanks for
We
your
appreciate your
guys.
hard work in the
Thank you.
community. Moving over to our resolutions. Mr. Little, we're going to resolution number 2.
Correct. We already have acted on item number 1. 2, a resolution adopting the VA Community-Based Outpatient Clinic Sewage Planning Module.
Council, is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second to approve. Questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Council, ordinances this evening, we have 2. Mr. Ratcher, please.
First ordinance is an ordinance of the Municipality of Monroeville, Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, amending ordinance number 2717, appointing Timothy J. Little as municipal manager of the Municipality of Monroeville and establishing the compensation and benefits of the municipal manager pursuant to section 701 of the Monroeville Home Rule Charter. Having trouble talking.
Council, is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second to approve. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Welcome, Tim.
Welcome back, Tim. Next item, Mr. Ratcher.
An ordinance of the Municipality of Monroeville, Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, amending ordinance number 2689 to revise the pollution control and flood reduction credit manual rules and regulations. This is the matter that we discussed at the work session. This is still in progress. It's part of our attempt to reach a settlement with CBL over their litigation involving the stormwater ordinance. And we're not at a point yet, we did advertise it, we're not at a point yet where council can act on it, so I'd recommend tabling it.
Move to
Make a
table.
motion to table.
Second.
Motion second to table. No further discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Poach?
Aye.
Mr. Hizzy?
Aye.
The ayes have it. The item is tabled. Mr. Ratcher, do you have anything this evening?
Nothing, Mayor, thank you.
Mr. Little, do you have any comments this evening?
Yes, I have just one item under my agenda, and kind of the cousin of the conservatorship we were just talking about, the Tricog Land Bank proposed property disposition at 611 Snowball Road. And I like to get these into the minutes, although it's not required, but council, if there's any objections to the Tricog Land Bank proposing a property disposition at 611 Snowball Road, let me know before March 7th. So I'm not familiar with that property, but the land bank is looking at taking ownership of that property to fix it up. That's all I have.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Hugus? No, sir. Ms. Rock?
Nothing.
Very good, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move over to our public comments on any municipal item. If there's anyone here who'd like to address council on any municipal item, as with the earlier comment period, we kindly ask that you keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. If you sign in, sir, and if you don't mind stating your name for the record when you get the chance.
Good evening. Mayor, council, municipal manager, solicitor, other municipal officials. My name is Logan Stadler. I'm the chief of Monroeville Volunteer Fire Company number 4 on Northern Pike. I just wanted to take a brief moment to say thank you to all of you for approving this purchase this evening of the new aerial apparatus. We have put a great deal of time into this, countless hours of meetings since 2019. We've really put our heart and soul into it, and we greatly appreciate you supporting us in this venture. So I'm speaking on behalf of everybody involved with this. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for putting in the time.
Yeah, it's easy on our end. You guys do all the hard work. We appreciate your service to the community.
And your commitments to it as well.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
time and financially as well.
It's a pleasure to do it, pleasure to serve the municipality, so thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Good job.
Thank you.
We'll leave the floor open for public comment.
Yes, I'm here, and I'd like to bring Mr. Hizzy, my new councilman, up to what's going on in our neighborhood. At the previous council meeting, they approved the Dreamers and Achievers Daycare Center at Haymaker Village, which is going to be for 90 children. It's located next to Papa Rocks. I don't know where the application is with the state right now. But I attended all the meetings along with my neighbors to bring counsel and make them aware of the safety issues in our neighborhood. So in the past 2 years, there's been 2 runaway trucks on Haymaker Road, which resulted in considerable property damage to the sidewalk area. One landed in the parking lot of Haymaker Village. There have been 3 pedestrian accidents. One was my neighbor hit in the main driveway crosswalk going over towards the Sunoco. He was hit, and then there was a second hit and run. And the third accident unfortunately resulted it was on August the 11th, resulted in the death of a 32-year-old man, and that was on Broadway near Coffee Street. Also, on the opposite side of the street in our driveway area, there were 2 utility poles that were hit that had to be replaced by Duquesne Light, and that was a hit and attempted fleeing of the accident, of the scene of the accident. I think there's enough going on with the safety issues there, and I had asked for that perhaps maybe council could get in touch with the state and get a reduced speed limit on the portion of Broadway Boulevard. Everybody knows it's 25 miles an hour through Pitcairn. It is 40 miles an hour from the intersection of Mosside Boulevard to the Trafford Bridge, and then is reduced once again to 25. To me, it makes sense, and it's a safety issue to maybe approach the state to get that reduced there, and perhaps get like an overhead sign like they have in Pitcairn that warns people that there's, a crossing there, pedestrian crossing. In addition to that, I had asked for if it was possible to get a weight limit on Haymaker Road to keep the trailer trucks and those bigger dump trucks off of Haymaker. There's a lot of people that walk Haymaker and jog Haymaker Road, and with these 2 last runaway trucks, to me that would be probably something that you could go to the county with, and for the price of signs, make a huge improvement in our neighborhood. I don't know if you are aware that when the Trafford Bridge closed for repairs, they moved the stop sign, they moved the bus stop from in front of the Burger King to Forbes Road. And people now have to cross over that busy, dangerous intersection from Forbes Road all across the Haymaker section and then on 130 into that driveway area. There are a lot of people that use that area as a park and ride. And my neighbor and I had contacted the Port Authority, asked them numerous times to move that back. We were originally told that was going to be a temporary thing till the bridge reopened, and it is still there, and people are, it's dangerous. So I would just ask that maybe, Mr. Hizzy, if you could get in touch with Mr. Markosik's office. I know I had gotten in touch with them after the third pedestrian accident, and they provided me with some traffic counts from roadway management system. These are things that can be done because these children are going to have to walk along a distance of, I'm not sure if it's close to 200 feet from Papa Rocks, from that section there, across that busy driveway, through the Advanced Auto Parts Park area, and then to the playground area that they're proposing. So I think that these changes, if they were made, could be life-saving. So I asked you if you can do that.
Georgina, right after our conversation on the phone, I did come up and speak to Mr. Little on that. We are looking into that, so. It was
Okay,
only
now
an
do you
hour
have
after
to
you
pass
talked to
some
me.
sort of an ordinance like you did
And I think
to?
also, Georgina, if I recall correctly, Mr. Hizzy's predecessor looked into it, also questioned, and I believe some of that handling of the is, I may be misspeaking. I believe it's part of their state approval and licensure. It has to go in place too, to accompany and to cross the space and.
Well, what they did was they
right.
put a crosswalk,
Mhm.
but there's no, I thought that a condition for their approval, and I could be wrong, you would have to check, was to put a stop sign, because there's no stop sign in that area where they'll be walking across by the Dollar General. There's no stop sign for the back of the plaza coming through there. So I believe that was a condition for approval, and I did check to see if anything was put up, and there's nothing there.
It's private property, isn't it?
It is.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe that condition of approval was in that, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
okay, because that is the main driveway, and that is where people, and the problem is people run the light, because that's a failing intersection. They run the light from Forbes Road, and they go directly into the plaza there, and they run the light from Haymaker. That traffic backs up. I already submitted all the pictures, Mr. Hizzy, if you want to take a look at them. They're
Yes, I will.
at the previous meetings, and so I appreciate any help you can do. As I said, it would be life-saving. Thank you.
Georgiana.
All right.
Thank you, Georgina.
Thank you, Georgina.
I'll leave the floor open for anyone that would like to address council on any municipal item. Seeing none, we're going to close that part of the meeting, move over to reports of our council members.
I have none at this time, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Mr. Hizzy, Mr. Poach.
I do. It's a beginning of a process for committee appointments, recommendations for council liaison as we move forward. First of all, thanks to Mr. Little for some help as we sorted through a lot of these groups and things that we have listed, also for on the website. Just for a second, for the folks to be familiar with what this is specifically, that's the position of these committee assignments for my colleagues on council are really ex officio type positions. The goal of them, the appointments, to provide a liaison to the boards, commissions, committees, and groups to help answer questions in most cases, whether it's budgeting, which we're more familiar with, and to provide kind of a 1,000-foot view of the way that eventually some of the decisions and recommendations that those groups made eventually come back to us here at council to do that, so to help guide them along that way. So again, we're not really pointing to that. As we look through the list that we currently have on the website, I think we have to come back and revisit that, because there are a number of things that were committees that may or may not still be in place on there. So I'm going to start with a few here. One of the things that occurred to me in the research of this, and perhaps it's just my perspective, was actually a 4-letter word came to mind. And Jared, you don't have to, don't hit the pause button that you think I'm putting. It's not a bad word. To do that. It's TIME, it's time. And as a result of that, the fact that these, working with these groups, these boards, these committees requires a lot of time, I've talked to my colleagues all this week and since being made deputy mayor to say, hey, guys, maybe there's some things where we can work together on it and provide those that have been on council can provide some input to those coming on and, help sort of double team some of these activities so that we're sure that we're getting the right information out to those groups to do that. So for now, for the beginning, I'd like to recommend the following appointments to do that too, and to folks to deal with this. Actually, the first couple are the Allegheny County Boroughs Association, the ALOM delegates of the League of Municipalities. Those are positions that I already assumed prior to the election the last time. I've asked Mr. Biondo to help as the second chair to that, as we will, to be involved in those pieces. The Visitors and Convention Bureau, I also asked Mr. Biondo to, to take the lead on that, but I asked Mr. Stevenson his availability and times for meetings of those groups to also be available on that as well. In consultation with Mr. Williams, to switch around with our new folks, but he'll still be around, from the Financial Policy Committee that we had in place, to have Mr. Adams take that position with Mr. Williams assisting him with that. The 4th of July Committee may be something that literally takes both people to be involved in that too, and folks who have an experience on that would be Mr. Hizzy and Mr. Adams to do that. It's a monthly meeting and a lot of work as we've moved forward, although with COVID, last couple of years, it's had to be delayed, but it still was an awful lot of work from that. Human Needs and Resources is something that's met periodically, intermittently over the past years or so. I think we only have records of 3 meetings, but we thought we'd still have it in place. To Mr. Williams and also Mr. Adams again. We currently have an intergovernmental committee between us and the Gateway School District. At the moment, I think we're in discussions with Gateway Schools on another topic, so I'm going to put that aside for just a moment. Although for future consideration, I'd like to suggest, of course, myself, Mr. Biondo, and, well, possible, and then Mr. Wolfram, but I'd like to impose on the mayor, if that does come back in place, to also participate in that as well.
Gladly.
Not normally, you're allowed to go to anything else. It's not an appointment, it's just a request.
Thank you.
To be in part
Absolutely.
of that. The library board that meets quite regularly, Mr. Wolfram has already started to help to work with that as well, and I'll sit as second chair for that as well. The Monroeville Foundation, thank you, Mr. Stevenson. I want to jump into that. There's really not a second on that because Mr. Little acts as their secretary and keeps great work through that as well. The Monroeville Municipal Authority, Mr. Hizzy. Think you'd understand that one? Jenny, you familiar with that? Okay, to do that too. Our Trail Advisory Committee that fits in place also has been in place, but I've asked Mr. Adams to keep that in because he helped whenever the trail was put in place, so we have some historical knowledge to go with that. Together with the Non-Uniform Pension Committee and the OPEB Trust Fund, we oppose those as well. Again, Mr. Adams, the leads on both sides with Mr. Williams, breaking him in on those in the last couple of years. He's
Yeah,
been engaged.
Mr. Poach, actually, those, I think by ordinance, those are connected with OPEB and financial
Correct.
policy. Those meet together.
Correct.
They're
That's correct.
connected, yeah.
That is correct. It's on there.
Perfect.
As we move forward onto this, at the moment, the Police Civil Service Commission, the Police Pension Commission, Police Pension Committee, pardon me, I represent those are 2 groups. Mr. Stevenson on both of those. I've sat second chair on those for a period of time right now, and we can continue to do that as well, but in place. The Public Safety Committee, myself and Mr. Hizzy, it's been in place for a while. We don't know the existence, this committee's been for a while, but the Public Works and Grounds Committee, we're going to be available for that. I think we have some projects moving forward with that. And given that for Mr. well, for me it'd be about a 7-iron, but for Mr. Stevenson, it's about a 9-iron to hit it from his house too. So it's in his area to do that as well. Our Recreation and Parks Board meetings as well. Again, I think you had some help the other day swearing in Mr. Biondo. And I think that was pretty attractive to that group to do that, so they've asked that you participate with them, so we appreciate it as well. Our Senior Citizens Council meeting, unfortunately, I think we've, best efforts from Mr. Wilson last time. Unfortunately, he wasn't available for much of that in the last year or 2 for a number of different reasons, but Mr. Williams is willing to do that, and that's a daytime activity as well from that. And then the last piece that's on here, and I'm not clear precisely, but we want to talk about the representation to the Turtle Creek COG. begin with Mr. Hizzy, and I can back him up on those whenever we move forward for now. So possibly more to come, please, as we clean that back up, and then hopefully we'll clean the website up to get at least this information on so that's out there. And thank you guys for all of your willingness to participate. Again, it's that four-letter word, TIME, that we all need to get out there to help with those groups, and it'll be useful in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poach. And yeah, as you mentioned, I mean, you are not bound to just this meeting. You can add more things later. Maybe even new committees may come, maybe arise.
Or you can help create other
Right?
committees, right?
Or maybe, once again, with time, if it's not working for a certain member of council, you can always make changes. And
Thank you.
And I think that's, but nice work. It's a lot of work to do.
Thank you. Yeah, it is.
Mr. Stevenson.
I have the same thing Mr. Ratcher had, nothing.
Great inspiration for you, Mr. Stevenson. Thank you.
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Adams, Mr. Williams.
Yeah, I have a couple things here. First, I would move to advertise an ordinance to amend the zoning hearing board from 5 members to 3 members, plus an alternative.
So you're looking for,
I made a motion, that's a motion. I'm looking for a second
to advertise an
to
ordinance.
advertise an ordinance.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to authorize the advertisement of an ordinance to reduce the zoning hearing board from 5 members to 3 members,
Plus an alternate,
and plus an alternate.
right,
And that's what has been done in the past in the municipality.
right?
Okay. Questions or comments, council?
Yes, I was on that board for 6, 7, 8 years. I don't recall it. It was a bunch. And I was on there when there was 5. And I was on there when there was 3. I personally believe that it can function properly with 3. Just me saying, so
Okay.
that's all I got.
Well, I'd like to add a point too, Mayor. We looked at that, and we received some professional advice from our staff in-house too, as well as from some consulting folks in the engineering world to do that I believe led to that expansion, just prior to me joining council, actually, to 5. And that particular recommendation was for this community the size of Monroeville, possibility of 5, worked as well to move forward with it. So that was that recommendation that we found in the past too, so to stay at 5.
I mean, this is to advertise for the ordinance, correct? So we're not
No, we're not
voting on
voting
the
on it.
ordinance.
Correct.
right
This
now.
is exactly. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Biano.
right.
Yeah, if there is a motion and a second to approve this, if you vote in the affirmative, all we're doing is advertising it to be discussed next month and possibly acted on or not acted on, up or down next month. Any other comments about the advertisement part of it? Seeing none. So roll call, please. There's a motion and a second to approve the advertisement.
Just to clarify, Mayor, it would be for an advertisement to change it from 3 to 5 members?
Change it from 5 to 3, yes. And it would be by ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
So roll call, please.
Mr. Hizzy?
No.
Mr. Poach?
No.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr.
Aye.
Adams? Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Biondo?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Okay, so Mr. Ratcher, Mr. Little, if you could work on that for
Sure.
next month.
Yep.
Great. Mr. Williams, anything else this evening?
In the Home Rule Charter, Section 1802D, according to the Home Rule Charter, Section 1802D, no person shall serve on more than one municipal board, commission, or authority, except in an ex officio capacity, and I would ask Mr. Ratcher to clarify ex officio.
So ex officio is a fancy Latin word that means from the office. The easiest example that I could use is when council members act as liaisons to our boards and commissions. They are sitting there with that board or commission and acting in an ex officio capacity. You have the right to be there, but of course you're not a decision maker. You don't vote or anything like that. The mayor, he's an ex officio member of all committees and commissions and so forth by virtue of the Home Rule Charter. So that's what ex officio is.
Okay, thank you. So I would make a motion to not let people serve on more than one board consecutively at a time.
So in this case, so it's in the home charter. Is this something that we need to?
It is.
It is a rule that in the past has not been strictly adhered to. So there's nothing to change. That is the rule. But past councils have seen fit to ignore that rule at times. So I think and really what it may entail is the fact that council has rules and regulations that they adopt when a new council comes in. I know, Mr. Williams, I've given you a copy of those rules and regulations. You just may want to, by resolution, reaffirm the fact that if that's what you all want to do, that you want to follow that guideline of not going against the home rule charter with respect to people serving on more than one board or commission.
Yes, it's my intention.
I have a question here on the home rule charter. You're mentioning rule. Is this a rule book or the law?
Well, it's the Constitution. It's the governing document.
That's what I
Calling
mean.
it
I
a
mean,
rule, but it's a law. It's a rule. It's the same
Well,
thing.
if it's in the books, I mean, it should be adhered by.
Well,
I mean, if it's the law, if it's saying.
I don't disagree
You know,
with you.
It's pretty
I agree with you
I
there,
don't
Mike.
disagree with you. It's up to council, though. At the end of the day, all these decisions are up to the 7 of you who have a vote.
So
You're saying the power of council, 4 votes, could change the law of Monroe?
No, that's not what I'm saying. They can ignore the law, and that's what they did in those instances.
The only way that can be changed, Mike, is under a referendum, because when.
Exactly. I know that. That's what I'm saying. Is this law or is this
So,
rule book?
I mean,
It's a law.
well, just as a comment, as Mr. Ratcher said to Mr. Williams, I mean, if council votes to put a person on a board and it's his or her second board, voice your objection to it, and what happens after that?
Or-
I
Well, is it you voice your opposition, or is it just the fact that it just doesn't happen because it makes them ineligible?
Yeah.
If someone's on a board already, they can't get on a second board. It'd be no different than if there wasn't a vacancy on a board, that just can't happen. So maybe, I don't know if it's something we need to,
I think that's the way it was probably intended.
yeah, maybe
way
it's something we
it
need
was
to just
wrote up.
work out
Yeah.
internally from a staff perspective. If someone gets appointed to a second board, or maybe they're interested, and
I would suspect how that started, and I'm speculating here, is as not just this council, the previous council, but going back years, you have difficulty getting people on boards.
Yeah.
That's where it
And
starts.
somebody is willing to serve on it, but they're on another board, so the council figures, hey, we can't get anybody here, so appoint them. I'm not saying that's correct, but that would be connecting the dots.
Well, to add to that point, from a historical perspective, that's precisely what's happened recently, in the last 4 years, in many cases. We looked at vacancies and vacancy after vacancy in the blue sections of our here, and there weren't people there. So some people did step into different additional boards, continue to move that forward. As we mentioned, those boards and committees, advisories are, in general deference to the charter, I don't have the numbers in front of me and stuff too, but they're to work on policy issues related to advice to us to act on in that case. So that's kind of what's happened in the past, and with the full knowledge of, hey, there wasn't anybody else here for a period of time. And if I'm not mistaken, there's something in the charter, but it may be to allow people from different wards and different positions and so on too, for if it stays vacant for so long.
That's on the library board.
That's in the library board and to do that. So when you start looking at those large vacancies, lengths of period of time, that's how a lot of that occurred too, so.
well, in this regard for Mr. Williams's motion, just to kind of wrap this all up here, I mean, is it reasonable for council to agree to just move forward with
The rules.
following these rules?
Following 1802, is it D, Bob?
1802D is what I have written down.
1802D, yeah.
Yes,
I mean, I don't know if there's anything.
So you
act on.
basically are affirming that you are going to follow that regulation in terms of
Okay, so
not having people serve on a second board or commission.
So, Mr. Little, maybe from an administrative standpoint,
Correct.
talk to Dara about
Right.
keeping that straight as far as applicants. And do we know if we have any current people serving on more than one board?
I would have to check. I won't say publicly whether we do. I can't I think
What's-
we do, but I'm not gonna say, because I don't definitively know.
Well, I mean, if council is okay with that, have Mr. Little review that and see if there are cases currently, but then moving forward, we just say that, no, you can only serve on one and follow the charter.
Do we have to vote on an agreement that we're gonna do that?
It's already an ordinance.
It's a,
You
yeah,
you
It's the
can,
rule.
you
It's
can,
already
you
the
can
rule.
vote on, you can vote on your intention as a council to follow that 1806D,
So.
1802D,
So
I'm
can you
sorry.
help me maybe amend his motion to be that we are following?
So you basically are making a motion that council recognize and follow 1802D with respect to appointments.
Yeah.
And if you can all vote on that, and then you're following what is the existing,
in the charter.
in the home rule charter, yes.
Things-
With
okay,
that being said, if we find 4 people that are on 2 committees, what do we do? Throw them off?
Well,
What do we do?
Well, in the case of a couple of them, you can't throw them off because once they're appointed to those committees, the ones that come to mind right off the top of my head are the zoning hearing board and the water authority, municipal authority. The municipal authority membership, once somebody's appointed and removal, is controlled by the Municipality Authorities Act. Zoning hearing board membership and removal is controlled by the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. The other ones are just creations of the home rule charter. And if council was so inclined, they could remove those parties from those boards, or they could.
But I'm asking, are we going to do that? Is that how far we're going to go here? Or are we going to let them run out their term?
I think in this particular case, I appreciate Mr. Williams's, references to the charter, and certainly that's, it's what's in there, as you said, our Constitution, to follow that. In the context of some of the appointments or things that have happened in the past, the reality is that was a solution at the time that was in place. I don't think we needed any other resolution to move forward with it. In fact, we're following our rules. All due respect, Bob, I don't know that I would.
Well, I see both
Makes
sides, I
sense
see both sides.
To
The
do
only-
that, to go ahead and continue to follow the rules. Those were more an emergency, if you will, that's an over-exaggeration, but, a resource for something that wasn't filled for a prolonged period of time. So then it was an act, hey, these commissions, boards, and things that we just talked about were becoming non-functional, which also, suggests in the charter, needed to be there. So now what do? Trying to make it functional, recognizing the difference between it, and amending that rule, by vote publicly to do that, and acknowledging that that's what we're doing. But otherwise, do we really need a resolution to follow the rules?
No, I
In my
think,
mind, the
I
answer
think,
is gonna be no.
no, I think.
I don't think there's anything else we
agree,
need. Thank you. I mean, it's like, okay, we brought it to our attention, but I don't think there's anything else to discuss on it.
Right, but as
But
far
in
as
the-
your point, the concern I would have would be if there are, let's say, to Mr. Stevenson, you're saying that someone's on multiple boards.
Yeah.
The only issue I would have, if there were other residents that were interested in those boards, and now you have one person serving on 3 different boards, and just try to give everybody a fair shot at a board position.
But
I don't think we have that.
I don't believe we do have
We
3 or
have too
4.
many shortages.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
I mean, I think we let what we have in place, again, this was the result of, and again, I'm overusing the term emergency, but it's not, result of a deficiency, that's a better term for it. People were not applying those in place. We publicly acknowledged, hey, we asked this question, it's in the chart. Well, we don't have anybody, we're becoming non-functional. So those people, in good faith, asked the opportunity to do that. They should continue their terms and, move and continue with the charter for on. The rule's already there.
Or does council want to see exactly if we even have these, maybe we don't even have these issues.
So, well,
Maybe we have staff see if there's actually are people that are serving on more than one board, and we act at that
and
point.
from there on, it's an administrative piece of it to discuss it with them. But from now, allow the people to continue till the end of it.
We can put a provision on the ballot in May to put in there a provision, for instance, that if it's vacant for X amount, and depending on what board you're talking about, and put into the home rule charter to see if the public, the residents, vote for it. If it's vacant for an extended period of time, then you could
Yeah,
have two.
I can live with that, Bob.
Yes.
Maybe work towards, because we did do a revision, and I think the committee did a hell of a job back in 2016. I think they did a great job. But there's still things that crop up
Does it take a public vote to change?
Well, yeah,
these rules?
referendum, they put in
Referendum,
the
the ballot.
Put it on a
for May,
referendum?
and it
Yeah,
has, now
I would
that
go
would
for
have to be, sent to Bureau of Elections, I'm not sure.
I think it's already too late probably for this coming election,
May,
truthfully.
yeah. Yeah, you might be
Yeah,
right.
because there's some statutory periods that you have to observe in there before you can do it.
Well,
Advertising and so forth.
So,
So just so we can make sure everybody, I mean, I'm hearing a little, couple of different things. I just want to make sure that we're clear in our direction. So where is council at this point in regards to this? From my understanding, you want to follow the rules that are in the home rule charter. And I would agree with that. I think that's what we should do. But I think the next question I would have to give direction to the manager would be, do we start it right now? Do we?
From here on,
But let who's on there, if there are multiple people,
Yeah.
finish their term.
Agreed.
and from here on.
From here
by-
on,
By the,
don't do it.
rule charter.
Yeah.
And then and then to add to that point is that possibly consider in the future the budget discussion and the mechanics to get that accomplished. To do that, because obviously the action at the time, these aren't open, we acted against it, well, now we have a question about it. So let's clear that up. So, I don't know how.
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
okay,
I think
thank you.
that's-
Then we don't really need to
that's
act on
right.
anything to do that, too.
Good, sure.
Very good. Mr. Williams, do you have anything else for your comments this
That's
evening?
all I have, just that condolences go out to the Span family and a speedy recovery for Steve.
Oh,
Wolf,
gosh, yeah.
Who's
Feel better, Steve. Yeah, thanks, Bob.
incapacitated
What's wrong with
at this point, so may God touch him and heal his body. Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Biondo.
Just for clarity, do we need to have Mr. Williams withdraw this motion, or
It didn't have a second.
It did
Okay.
not.
Did not have a second?
Okay.
Sure, very good.
So-
So it'll just,
I don't know, that's all I had.
There
Sorry,
wasn't
hanging out
nothing
there.
that needed voted on anyways, I don't think.
these attorneys always stay, huh?
Oh, always. Never stop.
That's great. And yes, I spoke enough this earlier in the evening. I just want to, as with Mr. Williams, wish Mr. Wolfram a speedy recovery.
Yes.
And I just want to wish my daughter Hannah happy birthday on Thursday. But she's not watching this, so it really doesn't matter. But at any rate,
That's not a good civics lesson.
Mr. Mayor?
she's in high
Mr.
school.
Mayor,
But yes.
don't forget the cookies.
Oh, yeah.
back there, yeah.
Oh, Maddie's.
Oh, very good.
That
Yes.
might, oh, guys, that might be covered by
she's
privilege.
Thank you, Maddie.
Yes,
Thanks.
we
think
had
she's
cookies
trying to
delivered
sweeten this up.
to our meeting earlier, and we
Yes, yes.
thank you, Maddie.
Giving us.
So with that, I want to seek a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you and good night.